Good morning, students. Welcome to the live lecture of Real Analysis 1. In the last lecture, we have seen one example how to solve by Riemann sum integration method or definition of integrability. The example we have considered is f of x equals to mod of x. Okay, on the given interval of -1 to +1. As of we know that mod 1 behaves differently from -1 to 0 and from 0 to 1. Therefore, instead of using a routine method of partitioning the given interval into n equal parts, we have divided it into 2n equal parts. This we have discussed, right? And by doing so, we have solved it by Riemann sum method. Riemann sum we have calculated. Later we have taken the limit and we have shown that this limit exists and hence the function is integrable and the value is 1. I think I have given you a homework to find out the area of these two triangles by using the sketch. Are you verified this? Because you should know actually whether we have whether we whatever the answer we have calculated is correct or not. That we can verify very easily. Is that okay? Later we have seen an application of this Riemann sum method, proving that whenever we have two functions and the sum is integrable, then integration of addition of two functions is addition of the respective integrations. Okay, this we have proved already by using Darboux sum method or Darboux sum definition. Now again we were trying to prove this by using the Riemann sum definition. For this we have written the definition separately here. Okay, for both functions f1 equation number 1, for function f2 it is equation number 2. Then we have just added both the inequalities to get this inequality number 3. Later again knowing that the function f equal to f1 plus f2 is integrable, we have written this Riemann sum and we have obtained this inequality number 4. But observing equation 3 and 4, we can see very easily that this Riemann sum corresponding to f1 plus f2 gives you two different limits. But as of we were saying the limit exists, both the limits must be equal. Therefore, we have written the equality. Same we can verify for the subtraction as well. Now let me do one corollary depending on this. Now the corollary says that if f1, f2, okay, if f1, f2 are integrable over the closed interval a to b and c1, c2 be any two functions, any two constants, then prove that c1 f1 plus c2 f2 is integrable on the same interval a to b, and prove that, and one more point we wanted to prove this, integration of c1 f1 plus c2 f2. We have used it previously, no? How we were writing this? Yes? What should be my right hand side?
C1 integrate A to B f1 dx.
Very good. C1 integration a to b f1 dx added with c2 times integration a to b f2 dx. Okay. Now in this section we wanted to prove that the linear combination of two integrable function is integrable and the integration is executed with this formula. As it is a corollary, we can use this statement, right? Integration f1 plus integration f2 is integration f. Now what I am going to do, for the sake of convenience, let me call this linear combination to be some function f. Therefore, I am going to write this as let f is c1 f1 plus c2 f2, and then for any partition we will write its corresponding Riemann sum, correct? For any partition P, we can write, yes, what will be the corresponding Riemann sum for this function here? SPF is, what's the formula? What is the formula for Riemann sum?
Yep, Ti delta x.
Very good. This is f of Ti into delta xi. But if we have selected this, no? Therefore, let me substitute the value. Therefore, is it C1 F1 plus C2 F2 operated on delta xi. Okay. How this is solved? Ti I forgot. Operated on Ti into delta xi. Now how can I operate this linear combination of functions on a point? Is it pointwise operation as C1 into F1 of Ti added with C2 into F2 of Ti, okay, into delta xi as it is. Okay, now can I separate the sum over this linear combination? Is it C1 times summation I equals to 1 to n F1 Ti into delta xi added with C2 times integration I equals to 1 to n F2 Ti into delta xi. But looking at these two sums, may I say these are the Riemann sum corresponding to the functions F1 and F2? Correct, no? Therefore,
Yes,
this is
ma'am.
Riemann sum corresponding to the function f1 added with C2 times Riemann sum corresponding to the function f2. Let me call it as statement number 1. This is what the relation between the sums we have obtained. But what is given? These two functions are integrable, right now? What is
Yes,
the
ma'am.
meaning of functions are integrable? Riemann sum, modulus of Riemann sum and integration is less than epsilon. Correct, no? Definition.
Yes, ma'am.
Since f1, f2 are integrable, comma, for epsilon greater than 0, we can choose or we can find delta greater than 0 such that for all partitions P with norm P less than delta, correct, no? Norm P less than delta, we have. What we have? Let me write function f1 is integrable by definition number 1. That is SPf1 minus integration. I think someone has unmuted the mic, which is creating the disturbance. Okay, good. Let me call this as statement number 2. Similarly, for the function f2, one can write SPf2 minus integration a to b f2 dx less than by epsilon. Let me call it as statement number 3. Is it okay? Now, by using these two inequalities, we wanted to show that the function f, that is c1 f1 plus c2 f2, is integrable. Okay, so let me just use these two inequalities. What I will do, I will multiply this inequality number 2 by c1, number 3 by c2 say, and I will try to add. Once I will try to add, what the term I will get in a modulus, is it c1 spf1 c2 into spf2, which will create my Riemann sum with respect to the function here. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So let me just write multiply 2 by C1 and 3 by C2 and adding. Okay, now what I'm going to write is I'm going to write everything in a combined format. Already we have seen here na mod x less than epsilon. Yesterday we have seen mod y less than epsilon. If I make a addition, this gives me mod x plus mod y less than epsilon. But we already know mod of x plus y is less than or equals to by mod x plus mod y, which is strictly less than by epsilon. Therefore, I can combine the modulus also. Same logic I will use here for multiplying by C1 also. Okay. Therefore, let me combine this in one modulus itself. Is it okay?
Yes,
For
ma'am.
here itself I can write multiplying by C1 and here it is multiplying by C2. Then what will be my right hand side? Yes. C1 mod x plus C2 mod of y less than by C1 epsilon plus C2 epsilon. Correct now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But may I write mod of C1x plus C2y is less than by less than or equals to C1 mod x plus C2 mod y, which is strictly less than by C1 epsilon plus C2 epsilon. Therefore, combinedly I can write this is less than by BC. Therefore, I am writing everything in one modulus. Okay. So, what is my C1 times the first added with C2 times the second? Let me write C1 SPF1 minus integration a to b f1 dx added with C2 SPF2 minus integration a to b f2 dx, and which is less than by C1 epsilon plus C2 epsilon. Correct, no? Okay. Now what I will do?
Yes, ma'am.
Now what I will do? I collect the sums together and integration together. C1 SPF1 added with C2 SPF2. Let me put this in one bracket. Now let me take the sums to integrations together. It will be with negative, no? Therefore, this is a C1 integration a to b f1 dx added with C2 integration a to b f2 dx, which is combinedly less than by C1 epsilon plus C2 epsilon. Okay? Yes, any difficulty? Now what I am going to write? This sum is nothing but SPF, no? Minus C1 integration f1 dx plus C2 integration f2 dx combined less than by epsilon times C1 plus C2. The reason is statement number 1, no? Whether I have given? Yes. This is the statement I have used. Okay. Now look at the statement. Looking at this, may I say limit of SPF exists and this will be a limit? Correct, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct, no? This will be a limit. Therefore, may I say this, whatever the function under the consideration is integrable. Okay? Thus, limit SPF exists and is equal to what? This is the limit, no? Is equal to C1 integration f1 dx plus C2 integration f2 dx. Therefore, may I say as the limit for the function SPF exists, may I say the function f equal to C1 f1 plus C2 f2 is integrable. Or here itself you can write. If you are getting confused how this limit is, then I can write limit mu p tends to 0 SPF is equal to, what is the value? C1 integration f1 dx plus C2 integration f2 dx. Both the statements have the same meaning, right now? These two statements. Yes. Therefore, we were saying limit exists, the function is integrable. Whenever the function is integrable, actually one can write it belongs to R, no? R is not real numbers. This is set of all Riemann integrable functions. This is set of all Riemann integrable functions. Okay. If the function is integrable, and what is the integration value? Yes. What is the integration value? Integration value we have proved C1 integration a to b f1 dx added with C2 times integration a to b f2 dx. Is it okay? Any difficulty with the proof?
No, ma'am.
Therefore, in the previous lecture we have shown
No, ma'am.
addition and subtraction of two integrable function is integrable and the integrations are evaluated correspondingly. In today's lecture we have seen that linear combination of two integrable function is integrable and the integration is evaluated with this formula. Okay. Let us go to one more theorem which is going to tell us the idea about the integration, which we have proved already. That is integration a to b is integration a to c plus c to b, right now? Let me write a statement. If a function here is bounded and integrable on each of the intervals AC CB and AB, where C is the point of closed interval AB. Okay. Then it is asked us to prove that integration a to b f dx is equal to integration a to c f dx plus integration c to b f dx. This we have proved by using Darboux sum, by taking c to be a point and then refining the given partition. But in this we were not going to use the same methodology. We were going to prove this just by using Riemann sum definition, second definition of integrability. Okay. Actually, in a real analysis, whenever we wanted to prove any two terms, A is equal to B, what is sufficient for me to prove? We will try to prove that mod of A minus B is less than epsilon. Correct, no?
Yes,
Why
ma'am.
mod of A minus B less than epsilon gives you A equal to B? Because this is a non-negative term. Correct, na? This is non-negative term. And this is positive term. For any non-negative term which is less than by every positive, what is the possibility? The term equal to 0 is the only possibility. Correct, no?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, here, while proving this equality also, we were going to show that this left hand side minus right hand side is less than epsilon under the modulus. Okay? To prove this result, we were going to show that in the modulus, left hand side minus right hand side is less than by epsilon, which will prove the equality left hand side is equal to right hand side. Okay. Before that, we will write the function are integrable as of on the given intervals, because it is given that the functions are bounded and integrable on AC, CB and AB. Therefore, what Riemann sum definition tells me? Limit SPF exists. Okay. Therefore, we will write that limit SPF exists on each of these intervals. Let me go for writing the definition. For this, let me select some epsilon. Let epsilon greater than 0 be given number. Okay. As f is integrable on each interval AC, CB and AB, what we were saying, there exists delta greater than 0, right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Delta greater than 0 such that for every partition P containing C, because C is the point in the given interval and that should be in my partition as well, containing C point C with norm. Why norm condition is essential? Can anyone tell me? With norm P less than delta. Yes? Why norm P less than delta? Look at your definition. Let us just recall. In the last lecture we have studied the definition, no? Where is that definition? Here it is, the definition, right? Now, look at this definition. What the definition says that limit mu p tends to 0. Limit mu p tends to 0, SPF is integration. And if we were writing this in the epsilon delta notation, yes, this mu p tends to 0. This condition we were writing as a condition on the partition norm p minus 0 less than delta. Correct, no? Therefore, for which partition this is true? For partitions P with norm P less than delta. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't write this condition, it means that it will be true for any partition. But for any partition, can you write mu p tends to 0? No.
No.
Okay. Therefore, this condition must be true for which partitions? For the partitions P whose norm is less than delta. Because norm P less than delta ensures that this mu P tends to 0. Because mod of mu P minus 0 less than delta will ensure mu P tends to 0. Therefore, don't forget to write for the partitions whose norm is less than delta. This is very important condition. Okay, let us come back. We were going to write for F1, F2 and F3. That, sorry, for not F1, F2, F1 AC, F1 CB and F1 AB. Okay. First condition I will write mod integration. As of we don't know the partition points, so what I will write? I will write simply the partition on this interval AC. Correct? Generally we were writing na summation I equals to 1 to n. But here we don't know whether there are n points in AC. Generally we were taking n points in AB. But we don't know now how many points will be in AC and CB. That's why instead of writing that I equals to 1 to n, we will write the partition on which interval? AC. Okay? Minus integration a to c f dx is less than by epsilon. Let me call it as statement 1. Same for which interval next? Is it for CB? Either you write SPF or f of t at delta xi. One and the same, no? This is integration a to c to b f dx less than epsilon. Let me call it as number 2. And what will be my third statement? Summation on which interval now? A to b. Integration a to b f dx less than by epsilon. Let me call it as statement number 3. Any difficulty up to this? I have written the definition simply. Okay. Now, we wanted to find out the relation between the sums involved in all the 3 statements. Okay. What can you say about the sums involved in the 3 statements? What will be a relation? Can you tell me? Integration sum on a to b f of ti delta xi we have. Next we have sum on a to c, same term na f of ti delta xi, and one more sum we have integration sum on c to b f of ti delta xi. I just wanted to know the relation between the 3 terms. Yes, can anyone guess this relation? This is the interval a to b we have. This is a to c. Initially we were considering the term f of ti delta xi on this whole interval a to b. Right? A summation was taken. Later the same term again. We were not changing the term. Term remains the same. And later we were considering the same term on which interval? A to c. One sum we have taken. Similarly, integration sum on c to b, this is one sum. So can you tell me the relation between these 3 sums under the same term?
Equal to an
Yes, it is equal to an
Equal
addition.
to
Very good.
plus
Sum on a to b is equal to sum on a to c plus sum on c to b provided with the same term. Correct? This is what the relation we have between the summations, right? Now let us go to prove this fact. Okay, and to prove this fact, we will use this terminology. So let me write to prove that integration a to b f dx is equal to integration a to c f dx plus c to b f dx. Okay, now what I am considering? Consider modulus left hand side minus right hand side e to c no plus e to b f dx, and the aim is to show that this is less than by epsilon. If I show this term is less than by epsilon, this statement holds. Okay. Now to looking at this, if we have these three statements in our hand, every integral is involved with the corresponding Riemann sum on the corresponding interval. Just to adjust these three Riemann sum, what I am going to do, I am going to make a small adjustment of adding and subtracting a term. Which term I am adding and subtracting? I am adding and subtracting summation on a to b. Let me write first. Okay. Now what I am going to add and subtract? I am going to subtract sum on a to b f of ti delta xi, and the same will be added. Is it okay? This is purely an adjustment we have made. Why the adjustment is essential? Because every integration is involved with this Riemann sum on the corresponding interval. So we have added and subtract. Later what I am going to write? I am going to divide this sum into two parts. Which two parts? Sum on AC plus sum on CD.
CD.
No? Just now we have written. Let me give number to this, say 4. This is my fourth statement. Okay. Therefore, can I divide this sum as of these two summations in the next statement? Now what I will do, simultaneously can I write the integration with corresponding summation on the interval? This is integration a to b, no? Therefore here I will take this with summation on a to b f of pi delta xi. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Then we remains with the bracket a to c. Every time I'm making the same mistake. C to b. And then this sum is now divided as sum on AC of pi delta xi added with sum on CD of pi delta xi. Reason is from 4, na? This is from 4. Okay. Now again, as we have written for this first one, integration on AB combined with sum on AB. Similarly, we will do for the remaining two integrations. Integration, let me put this in one bracket. It will be better. Minus sum on AB of pi delta xi. Okay. Now let me take addition. May I take this sum on AC along with integration AC. Okay, are you getting me? Sum and integration on the same interval we were collecting together. Later what I will do, I will take sum on CD f of pi delta xi with a corresponding integration with a negative sign. Sum on CD, no? Integration on CD. Okay. Okay. Now, if you just look at this 3, 1, 2, 3, every term in the modulus is less than by epsilon. Therefore, either you write sum and integration. If you interchange the position. No difficulty with second and third bracket. For the first bracket, here I want to interchange, right? So let me use a triangular inequality to separate all the three terms. While separating, I will interchange this position because as of where we were in the modulus, I can separate, no? So I can interchange. I hope there is no difficulty with this proof. Very simple proof it is. Okay, now here what happens? Instead of equal to, we have less equal, na? Triangular inequality we were using. Added with third term summation on CB f of pi delta xi minus integration CB of dx. Okay. But we know from this 1, 2, 3, all these modulus values are less than by epsilon, epsilon. But what we wanted to convert togetherly, we wanted to prove this is combinedly less than by epsilon, no? What should
Yes,
be
ma'am.
my adjustment? In 1, 2, 3.
Epsilon by 3.
Yes, it is epsilon by 3. Okay, I am not forgetting to make an adjustment. Remember, I am trying to show you how the adjustment is being made. Because this is less than by epsilon by 3 plus epsilon by 3 plus epsilon by 3 combined less than epsilon, and the reason is from 1, 2 and 3. Okay, therefore what we have proved? Modulus integration a to b f dx minus integration a to c f dx added with c to b f dx. This is less than by epsilon. What we have? Since epsilon is arbitrary, a non-negative quantity or term you can write quantity less than by every positive number is equal to 0. Okay, therefore this left hand side must be equal to 0, which proves integration a to b f dx is equal to integration a to c f dx plus c to b f dx. Hence the proof of this statement. If you have the difficulty, you can ask. Very simple proof it is. First we have written the definitions of a function is integrable on AC, CB and AB by 1, 2, 3. Later we have established the relation between the sums, and then to prove this equality we have taken left hand side minus right hand side, and the aim is to show it is less than by epsilon, and one adjustment has to be done. Okay, I hope there is no difficulty.
No, ma'am.
Okay, now we will go for some properties of the integrable functions. For the heading I am giving some integrable functions. Okay, under this heading we were going to first prove an important theorem that every continuous function is integrable. Every continuous function is integrable because every continuous function defined on the closed interval is bounded, that we know. Correct now? Every continuous function defined on closed interval is bounded, and for that bounded function it must be integrable. This is what our first theorem to prove is. Okay, let me prove a statement. This is one of the properties you can check, you can say, because in future suppose you have a continuous function in your hand, is there any necessity to check the integrability by definition 1 or definition 2? No, because we know the fact that every continuous function is integrable. Every continuous function is integrable. Now to prove the theorem, we were going to make use of one property of the continuous function defined on closed interval. I think this was a question I have asked in the seminar, no? Continuous function defined on closed interval is uniformly continuous. Which seminar was there actually? Forgot the name. What was the seminar? Mayurika?
हाँ मैम.
Okay, for every continuous function, if I define a closed interval, it becomes uniformly continuous. These are the properties we have studied. I am going to make use of this property while proving a theorem. Is that okay? What is the definition of uniform continuity? What is the definition of uniform continuity? Mayuri, huh? You can tell me the definition.
For all x, y belongs to domain, which is subset of R, then mod of x, x minus y is less than delta. Then
Which implies?
function f of x, mod of f of x minus f of y, which is less than epsilon.
Very good. This is delta and epsilon. This is what a definition of uniform continuity we have. Okay, let me write to prove that, or before that let me assume a function. Let f be a function or a continuous function defined on closed interval AB. Therefore, may I say f is bounded on AB? F is bounded on AB, and what is the aim to show that f is integrable? Correct, no? Bounded and continuous we have in our hand, and the job is to show that it is integrable. Now in this theorem, to prove the function is integrable, we were checking the condition of integrability. UPF minus LPF is less than by epsilon. This we wanted to show. Okay. Now let me just write as function f is continuous on closed interval AB, may I say f is uniformly continuous. Okay. Now according to the definition of uniform continuity, this we wanted to write. But epsilon we wanted to reserve for this condition of integrability. So instead of this epsilon, may I write some eta? Some eta positive number. Okay. Eta I will write instead of epsilon. Okay. So what I wanted to show here, or what I wanted to write here, this implies for every eta greater than 0, there exists delta greater than 0 such that, yes, what such that? Mod of ft1 minus ft2, t1, t2 are the 2 points I am selecting, less than eta whenever mod of t1 minus t2 less than delta, and t1, t2 are the 2 points in the interval AB. Okay? Yes? Okay? This is the definition we have written, and let me call this definition to be number 1. Now looking at this statement, this inequality actually, if the difference between any two arbitrary values of the function is less than eta for any t1, t2 less than delta, therefore if I select a partition of the given interval whose norm is less than delta, because whenever norm is less than delta, what will be the distance between the 2 points? Less than delta, no? 2 points of that interval, subinterval.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so for here what I will do, choose a partition T with norm less than delta means length of largest subinterval less than delta. But what about the length of the remaining subintervals? Also less than delta. And if the length of every subinterval is less than delta, if you select any 2 points of any subinterval, the difference between the 2 points must be less than delta. Means this condition will be satisfied, no? If I select partition with norm p less than delta, this condition satisfied. Therefore, can I use this statement? Correct? Then by equation 1 we have what we have? May I write suprema minus infima less than eta? Because as the function is continuous, suprema is nothing but one of the function value, infima is nothing but one of the function value, and we were claiming difference between any two arbitrary function values is less than by eta. Correct? Let us try to make the figure very clear again. Okay, say this is my continuous function defined on closed interval A to B. This is my f of x. We have selected the norm of the partition to be less than delta. That is length of this every subinterval is less than delta. Delta xi is less than delta. Okay. Now what we were saying by equation number 1, arbitrary function value difference is less than eta. So if I select this interval, say this is my t1 and t2. Okay. Difference between the function values ft1 and ft2. Here are the values actually. This distance is less than by eta. That is what statement number 1 says. Okay. Now, what about the infima and suprema of the function in the same interval? What is the suprema and infima here? Let me draw. It has to go straight. Let's go straight now. Okay. What about suprema and infima? Where is my suprema? Where is my infima? Here is say suprema, no? Mi. And here is say small mi. Difference between any two function values we were saying less than eta. Therefore, this is actually some ith subinterval if I write xi minus 1 and xi. Then what is my mi actually? Mi is f of xi according to this sketch, okay? And what about small mi? F of xi minus 1. Then what about the difference between these two function values? As per the statement number 1, it should be less than eta, no?
Yes, ma'am.
If you are getting me, you say yes. Otherwise, I will get confused whether you are understanding me or not. Okay? So by equation number 1, we have written this statement. Capital Mi minus small mi is less than delta, and this is for every subinterval, no? I equals to 1 to n. Okay, coming back to the consideration, what we wanted to prove, our claim is to show that the function is integrable, means UPF minus LPF less than epsilon. Therefore, let me consider. What I will consider? UPF minus LPF. UPF minus LPF. Okay. Then what is the what are the some definitions? Correct, no? Let me combine the summation. Capital Mi minus small mi into delta xi. Okay. Therefore, can I use this statement now? What is the number I have not given? Let it be 2. Mod of capital Mi minus small mi less than 8. Whether to write the mod or not is equivalent, no? Because suprema is always greater equal by infima. Therefore, can I write this as strictly less by? That is UPF minus LPF is now strictly less by summation I equals to 1 to n eta into delta xi. Is it okay? I replace this value. And from 2. What is the reason? From 2. Okay. Now eta is independent of I. Take it out. We remains with summation I equals to 1 to n delta xi. What is sum of all delta xi's? If I make the sum of length of all the subintervals, whether it will give me the length of only subinterval? Yes, it is b minus. Very good. Okay. Therefore, we have came up to this step. UPF minus LPF is less than this term. But the job is to show this is less than by epsilon. Therefore, the selection of eta we will make in such a way that this product will be less than epsilon. Correct, no? Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, here I will write for epsilon greater than 0, choose eta or choose a positive number eta. Choose positive number eta such that. What such that? Positive number eta such that eta into b minus a is less than by epsilon. Okay. If you just look at the proof in the book, this statement was given initially. But initially we make confused that why it was taken. Therefore, I am taking this here. This is my appropriate place to write the statement. Therefore, above equation becomes, or above inequality becomes, selection of eta we have made in such a way that eta times v minus a is less than by epsilon. What is my above inequality is becoming UPF minus LPF is less than by epsilon. And what it proves then? The function f is
Integrable on closed interval AB.
very good. Therefore, may I say this implies every continuous function is
Integrable on closed interval.
integrable. Okay? Hence the proof of this theorem. We have proved every continuous function is integrable. In the next lecture, we will go for proving monotonically increasing function is also integrable. I think you are familiar with the concept of monotonically increasing. What is monotonically increasing? A difference between increasing and monotonically increasing. Do you know the difference? Increasing monotonically increasing or decreasing and monotonically decreasing. If not, let us take this as a today's homework. We try to find out the difference. In the next lecture, we will show that the monotonically increasing and decreasing functions are also integrable along with some more results. Let me stop for today. If any difficulty you have, you can ask me.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Thank you for being with me for this lecture. Thank you.